One of the other things I was very interested in asking you about was Maria Esperanza. She seemed not only to be a mystic, but was very much able to see and understand the spiritual realm all around us. I know that you've written a book based on an interview you did with her. What can you tell us about Maria Esperanza? And is there anything important about this woman for today's times?
Well, yeah, it was a book actually based on interviews somebody else had done as well as myself. I probably owe a total of at least 15 to 20 interviews with her. And in my opinion, she's, of course, up for beatification now. Her cause is before a diocese in New Jersey. Matter of fact, I was recently called to spend a day testifying about her to this tribunal, I guess you would call it. Do I think that she had things relevant to our time? I believe so. She had prophesied 9/11 and saw further things happening in the United States as well as elsewhere. She saw. She was always a very positive person. She saw coming great light and a kind of a transformation of us spiritually around the world and a unification of Christianity. At the same time, before that occurs, she sees difficult moment is the way she put it at one point, and also natural disasters affecting places like the United States. So we have not yet seen many of the things that she foresaw, that she told us were coming. And so if we believe that she was a legitimate mystic, and I certainly do, then yes, there are certain things ahead of us in the future, and rather momentous things coming in the future. I'd like to add quickly, though, that even a saint, even somebody beatified or venerated or whatever, in offering prophecy is not necessarily 100%. We've seen this many times with saints in the past. So, again, it takes discernment, and it takes prayer, and it takes fasting.
That's very true, and again, very good advice. I like how very grounded you are in your take on these things, which is why I continue to frequent your site. I was talking before you got on about the movie Contagion. It's a movie that, I don't know, are you familiar with the movie that just came out?
I haven't seen it, but I'm familiar with the title.
Okay, and so it's about this worldwide pandemic that goes, and I just found it interesting that that Maria Esperanza foretold just such a kind of a thing with like symptoms of flu-like symptoms with the lips and the mouth turning like this blackish blue purple color, and that many people, especially infants and children, would die from it, but that she was given the remedy, which would be steeped hawthorn leaves, not the flower or the wood, but the leaves in water, and that we're to give this to our children in a tea, like a quarter of a cup at a time every hour on the hour until their symptoms subsided. Do you remember this kind of thing, and what context was she speaking about?
I remember it wasn't said to me. It was said in an interview with somebody else. I never spoke to her about that directly, I don't think. But there's every reason to believe she did say that, and it's curious. I don't quite know what to make of it, but I do believe that there are natural remedies, that God gave us remedies for just about anything we may suffer here on earth. It's just that we have decided that we can artificially create things that are better than what God offered to us. And it's very interesting because those things we do devise just about always have side effects, don't they? And,
yeah.
And we have some wondrous medications, and especially some of these antibiotics and so forth. When I need an antibiotic, I take one. So I'm not discounting modern science and certainly not modern medicine, but there are a lot of natural remedies, and who knows? Maybe there is something coming that the hawthorn plant can remedy. We do know that is a remediation for some other ailments, and I wouldn't be surprised, Christina, if one of the major events that at least I believe is coming, would be something like a contagion, to use the word of the movie, or a pandemic, because we saw Fatima, the apparition at Fatima had a connection to a great pandemic of the of what they called the Spanish flu back in around 1918 to 1920, when it killed many millions and millions of people around the world, including two of the Fatima seers. At such young ages. I think they died in around 1920. So it's an epidemic. I remember one time I was writing a book on possible things that can occur in the future, and I visited in Atlanta the Centers for Disease Control, and I was taking on a tour of the laboratories where they test the most dangerous viruses and bacteria on Earth. And, it's very sobering, because even these secular, non-believing scientists believe that something will eventually erupt. And that whether it's an Asian flu-type thing or whatever, they're especially concerned about flu viruses that come from birds, especially chickens. And it's something that it's probably the single likeliest scenario for causing huge global ramifications, effects, and disaster.
Well, I wanted to make two comments, one of which is, it's interesting to me that the pharmaceuticals that are developed that seem to work the best are the things that are organic or biological. So I believe it was mold, wasn't it, that antibiotics came from? It came from actual, some kind of a mold. It wasn't a pharmaceutical engineered chemical, but rather it came from a biological substance that was manipulated and then created some kind of ability to fight infection. And then in the show Contagion, I found it interesting that they had at the very first person who spread the infection, her husband was immune, and he says to the doctor in one of the first opening scenes, "Well, wouldn't you want to take my blood?" And they said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I'm immune, so wouldn't the antibodies be in my blood?" And she looked at him and said, "Oh, but that would take a long time and it'd be very expensive." And I thought to myself, okay, but in the next scenes, you're working on a pharmaceutical to be distributed, and it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of testing. One thing should for sure cure it, because it's based on the fact that this man has it. It's kind of like the comparison to I Am Legend, which was Will Smith's movie, of using his own body because he's immune to something to creating a cure. And I feel like that makes so much more sense than trying to come up with something that could or could not work, and that could or could not cause a lot of problems in other directions. So just fascinating to me.
Well, good point.
So
good point. So, we have to remember that right now, I believe, and this is a radical remark to make, I believe that we are out of accordance with God's plan for how our society is supposed to be. We are trying to become creators, to a large extent we have. We're trying to one-up God everywhere you look. Wood wasn't good enough. We need plastic. Plastic now everywhere. Totally just about replacing paper and things that biodegrade and do not have